A pleasant day, everyone. I am Dave, and I'll be reporting Module 1, Part 2C, Social Change Process Indicators. This report aims to discuss the following: definition of social change, three types of social change evaluators, community definition, social change process, and community dialogue and action process matrices. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So, first, let us define social change. So, social change refers to characteristics of a group of individuals that changes over time, as opposed to changes in the individual members of a group. So, with this definition, it is clear to say that social change focuses on the changes that is happening in a group or community. The process of reestablishing institutions and social structures that lead to a shift in culture is referred to as social change. It includes changes to social structures, cultural symbols, norms of behavior, and value systems. And here are some of the examples of social change. Industrial revolution transformed societies by creating new social classes. Civil rights movement advocated for racial equality and justice. Women's suffrage fought for women's right to vote, and environmental movements raised awareness about ecological issues. So, now that we know the basic concept of social change, let us now discuss who are the social change evaluators. So, first are the members of the community, who want to know how well their effort has achieved the objectives they set for themselves and how much more needs to be done. Next are the external change agents involved in the process who need to document how well a community has performed, and social scientists who want to conduct a systematic analysis of the relationship between the process and its outcomes across a sample of communities. So, before proceeding with the process of social change, let us first define the community for which these changes are intended. A community is often defined by geographical and legal governmental criteria, and we can define a community using two criteria. Using location as the criterion, a community is defined as a group of people who reside in the same locality. And for groups in which members do not reside in the same location, community is defined as a group of individuals who shares a common interest. So on your screen are the indicators of social change process. These indicators have the purpose of assessing how the community is advancing in its collective effort in the undertaking of a program solution to a problem affecting the community. So first, the recognition of a problem. The first stage in the process of social change is the recognition by the larger community or by smaller subset of the community that there is a problem that limits their current quality of life, constrains their aspirations for the future, or has the potential to hurt the community or members of the community. This stage is so fundamental that it is unlikely that any process would be implemented before there is a basic recognition of a problem. Next is the identification and involvement of leaders and stakeholders. The problem or issue to be addressed next should logically produce some kind of leadership structure. This leadership structure can take many forms, and these are as follows. First, spontaneously generated from within the group versus externally appointed leaders. Second, leadership comes from an existing cadre of community leaders versus leaders that evolve to address a specific problem. Third, traditional or cultural leaders versus political or externally appointed leaders. Fourth, group leadership versus individual leadership. Fifth, casual and/or dynamic leadership structure versus more formal or structured leadership. Sixth, stable versus constantly changing leadership structures. Seventh, leadership based on capacity versus interest versus random selection. Eighth, ongoing versus specialized or one-time leadership. Ninth, participatory versus autocratic leadership. And lastly, open opportunity versus selected leadership. The leadership that evolves in any community may be described using these descriptors. It is important to note that this type of leadership do not have an inherent value, that is, one type is not better than another in producing the desired outcome. Stakeholders. Participation of those who are most affected by the problem is a characteristic of community social change intervention. So, this involvement may be direct or indirect. Besides direct beneficiaries, stakeholders can also be family friends of direct beneficiaries, potential future beneficiaries, or people with an interest in the issue but no expectation of benefit. So next is the clarification of perceptions. Following this round of community discussion, there ought to be a higher level of consensus and comprehension on the nature of the issues. Next is the expression of individual and shared interests. One objective of community discourse is to balance the requirement for consensus while optimizing participation in the topic at hand. Balancing the interests of individuals with the greater good of the community is another objective of dialogue. Next is the conflict and dissatisfaction. Conflict may arise when attempting to strike a balance between the needs of the individual and the greater good of the community. In addition to communities' pre-existing power structures, which could influence the program's direction or act as a catalyst for opposition, there might be obvious conflicts of interest among the community groups when it comes to finding solutions. This is a crucial stage that has the potential to end a program or, if handled skillfully, to empower the community. More leaders or stakeholders may be consulted in order to resolve conflicts more skillfully by offering more proof or support or by persuading or influencing reluctant groups. At this point, the most crucial indicator is that the community continues looking for solutions, resources, and resolving disputes in constructive way to further the mission. Next is the vision of the future. Once a community has passed through the previous stages, it would be ready to plan where it wants to be in the future and to figure out the ways for getting there. Next is the assessment of current status. In order to identify a course of action, the community may already be motivated at this point to evaluate the scope and severity of the issue. Both quantitative and qualitative methods of assessment are possible. Information regarding the issue may need to be gathered from community members or from readily accessible resources. If community information collection is required, the community should determine how to coordinate in order to obtain the data. Setting objectives. The community should be able to list its goals and objectives as a result of a shared vision. The community the community leaders and or change agent should then assess how realistic the goals are and work to set moderate goals to prevent a sense of failure if they are too high or unrealistic, or demotivation if they are too low. Ambitious but attainable goals ought to be prioritized. So next